Welcome back to another episode of John the PM, where we believe that managing projects is not just a job, but a way of life. Question for the group. Has anybody ever had a situation where there are just too many cooks in the kitchen? In other words, you had a team of 10 people. They're all just kind of working and working, but nobody actually knew where their lanes were, what their jobs, their responsibilities, things of that nature. One really great tool or technique that can really help out a lot is the RACI chart. It is a responsibility assignment matrix. It's a way to help you as a project manager to provide guidance to the work that these team members, the key stakeholders, will have on this particular project. What it does is that it clears up any ambiguity. So, for example, RACI stands for RACI, that's how you spell it, responsible, accountable, consulting, informed. Let's start off with responsible. Responsible, these are the individuals who are the doers. They are responsible for helping you to do the work on those pieces. Now, there could be a lot of doers, but they are under the authority of the A, on those pieces. So yes, responsible. You have accountable. The accountable person, and there can only be one, has the bottom line authority. So they are accountable. They have yes or no. They're the ones, the proverbial buck stops here on that side. Notice, and again, I'll reiterate, there can only be one person that is accountable. Then you have consulting, and then you have informing. Consulting, you would ask these individuals for their input before the final decision is made. Informing, you would just simply tell them what the answer was after the fact on that side. Normally, the responsible people, that's usually the team, and they're responsible for helping you to do the work on that side. Accountable, that can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge. But it is sometimes helpful to delineate that, Jane, Joe, Mary, whoever may be the case, that one individual has the bottom line authority, authorization. They are accountable for this particular work task on that side. On these people. Now, the ones who are responsible are responsible to help to do the work. That's a true statement, but there can only be one that's accountable. Normally, those two are pretty straightforward. Where it sometimes gets a little bit of a challenge are those who will be consulted versus those who will be informed. The key issue or key difference is the when part. Is it before the fact or after the fact? Now, sometimes what will happen is that the people who will say that you stated that you will inform them after the fact, they may actually raise their hand and say, no, you need to actually ask me before you make the final decision. Here are some thoughts that you may want to think about. One, or think about and or do. One is, politely, use political correctness and so forth. But ask them, why do you need? Just out of curiosity. Why is your input needed on this decision? If they give a rational decision, discussion and things of that nature, and a lot of times it's, just discussion points on that side. And the reality of the situation is that in a lot of situations, you would be forced, and I use air quotes around that, to, consult with them ahead of time, on those areas, regardless of how it transcribes itself. What I would do on a personal basis is put a time limit on it. Tell them, agree with them. Yeah, instead of informing you after the fact, I will consult with you before. But I need an answer back within 12 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, whatever the appropriate time period is. If you do not give me a response by then, I will continue to go forward. Now, we are all victims of our past, things of that nature. And one time, early on in my career, I ran into the situation where this group said, hey, you need to ask us before you actually do something. And at the time, I said, not a problem. We'll just go ahead and ask them. Didn't necessarily agree with it, but that's what it was. So it was what it was. So I said, yeah, I'll ask you before. Well, I asked them a question, on those side, and honestly, it took like 3 or 4 weeks to get an answer back. After that, I said no more. Lesson learned. On that side. If somebody insists on being consulted before final decision, I always give them a time hack. Sometimes a time block, a period, a reasonable amount, but nevertheless a timeline, a deadline to get an answer back before we go ahead and make the final decision. Again, to each their own, but I would highly encourage you to do that, in some shape, form, or fashion. Now, believe it or not, the opposite can also occur. I'm involved in several social groups, as you know, volunteer groups, nonprofits, as you know from previous episodes, and I really do take a lot of time on those efforts on those sides. Occasionally, therein at work, people will say, "Well, John, we want to consult with you before we make a final decision," and I'll kind of like raise my hand and say, "You know what? I'm good. I actually believe what you're doing. I trust you, yada, yada, yada. Just tell me after the fact, and we are good to go." So, like I said, it is actually possible for it to go both ways. What is key in all of this is that a conversation will ensue. And when the conversation ensues, that will allow you to have some discussions, meaningful discussions, and or to get what the expectations, the ground rules were for this particular project, this particular effort, so that we can move forward in a very, very productive and highly efficient way. Well, again, just to kind of wrap this up, the responsibility assignment matrix. One of the various tools within the RAM responsibility assignment matrix is called RACI, responsible, accountable, consulting, inform. There's actually about 10 or there's actually a dozen of them that you can, kind of fit to your own particular situation. This one is probably the most basic one. There can be lots of responsibles. Actually, I hope that there are. Why? Because those are the doers. Just remember there can only be one that is accountable, and consulting informed before the fact, after the fact. My only concern with the ones before the fact is that you make sure that you put some kind of a timeline on them so that you can get an appropriate response within the designated time period so that you can move forward. Again, if you like this episode, please hit the like button below. Greatly appreciate it. In the meantime, may all of your projects go well and you have an awesome day.